From pigs stranded in a hurricane to abandoned puppies found on the side of the road, here are 10 of the most inspiring animal rescues. Number 10. Manatees. Manatees are one of the most popular species of animal in Florida and are loved by both locals and tourists. Their populations are at risk though, and there was concern when Hurricane Irma hit the region and the effect it would have on the sea cows. 2 of them from Manatee County, Florida became stranded in an unusually low tide when the storm pulled the waters out. They were stuck in knee-deep mud and had no way of freeing themselves. They were spotted by a group of people that were passing by who waded out through the mud to see if they could help. They began digging the mud away from the creatures, but unfortunately there weren't enough people to manage to lift them to safety. Manatees are heavy. They instead poured water over them to make them more comfortable and at the same time tried to call the local wildlife commission and authorities. Because everyone was preparing for the hurricane, they weren't able to get through. So instead, people turned to social media and posted images of what was happening. Soon enough, people began turning up at the bay to help out, and within a few hours, they were able to roll the manatees onto large tarps and carry them 100 yards to safety where the water was deep enough for them to swim away. The quick thinking of the group saved the 2 manatees in the face of the impending storm, and once they were returned to the water, they went off quite happily, not showing any sign of distress after what had happened. Number 9. Penny the pig. When Hurricane Harvey hit Texas in 2017, there were mass evacuations of the areas most at risk, and this left animals in precarious situations. One family, though, refused to evacuate unless they could take their pet pig with them. By the time firefighters arrived in a boat to rescue the family, they had already moved Penny the pig to the garage because her pen had started to fill up with water. Unfortunately, the garage doors stopped working, and it became a race against time to free Penny before the water level rose up and she drowned. Luckily, they managed to pry open the back door, and with the family and their 3-legged dog waiting in the rescue boat, the pig bravely swam out to them and was hauled aboard. The family was then taken to the nearest safe ground at a gas station, where they were able to wait out the torrential storm and return to their home once the waters had receded. Number 8. Peanut the cat. Cats are inquisitive creatures and will spend a lot of time exploring your neighborhood. This means that they occasionally go missing, whether because of an accident, getting lost, or even becoming trapped inside places like a garage when doors get closed. In October of 2017, Peanut the cat disappeared in Northampton, England, and his owner was devastated. This could happen to anyone. Pets disappear all the time, and people never know what happened to them. Not wanting to do the usual technique of sticking posters up, though, she came up with an ingenious solution. She set up a Tinder account for Peanut with a 6.5-mile match radius and featured an image asking for the information about his whereabouts. Within half an hour, there had been more than 400 people who promised to keep a watch out for Peanut, and later that day, she received a message from one user who had actually seen the cat outside of his window. She quickly went to the house and sure enough found Peanut. Good thing that ended well and he wasn't a serial killer. Peanut, of course, ran away immediately because, you know, cats. He eventually returned back home after she left a trail of food and treats from where she had spotted him, and later that night she heard him meowing outside her door. Turns out dating apps are good for something else. My cat Pumpkin used to go around to all the neighbors and take a tour through their house, then meow to get let back out. One time she went missing. We called all the neighbors, and it turns out a new family had moved in 3 streets over and had decided to adopt her. Luckily we got her back, but the family was sad to see her go. But hey, if something happens to your cat, now you know that Tinder can be a useful tool for more than what you think. Number 7. Benny the horse. Benny's owners had completely abandoned him in their backyard and were starving him to death. It's not entirely clear why. Maybe he was no longer strong enough to work on the farm, or never lived up to the racing dreams they had, but when a horse rescue organization in Maine discovered him, he was in really bad shape. His ribs were protruding from his body and he hadn't been fed for a long time. It was a wonder that he was still alive at all. The rescue organization soon leapt into action and moved him to their 21-acre farm. Here, they brought him back to health and socialized with him to bring him back from the brink. Over the next 6 months, the once timid and emaciated horse was brought back to full health, even surprising those who worked for the charity. Benny's story is a testament to those who spend their lives caring for mistreated animals and shows that with a dose of tender loving care, poor animals can be given a new lease on life. Number 6. A thirsty cobra. It's not just cute or friendly animals that need to be saved. Those that we are afraid of can also find themselves in dire straits, and it takes a particularly brave soul to help them out. Southern India often experiences severe droughts, and this means that the local wildlife struggles to get the water that it needs to survive. This leads to some scary scenes because king cobras that usually avoid human contact begin to venture into local villages to get some water and food. The king cobra is the longest venomous snake in the world, and this one that entered a village in Kaiga was 12 feet long. When these snakes approach, the locals already have a good idea why they're there. The first thing they tend to do in these situations is offer the cobra a drink. The snake is obviously thankful for quenching its thirst, but it still needs to be treated with great caution. The villagers keep their distance and have a hook to stop it from getting too close. Seeing a snake drinking from a bottle of water is pretty strange to say the least, but it's proof that locals want to live in harmony with the environment around them, and that means helping animals that aren't looked upon so fondly at other times of the year. All living things appreciate kindness. And now for number 6, but first be sure to subscribe and click the notification bell so you don't miss out on the latest videos. Number 5. Flamingos. In 2017, Hurricane Irma, the same one from the Manatees, struck the Florida Panhandle and caused widespread devastation. While the people who lived in the area had plenty of warning and were able to take precautions to protect themselves, the local animals weren't as lucky. Many people are forced to abandon their pets or get separated during evacuation, and very rarely do people think of animals that are kept in zoos and what happens to them during a hurricane. Employees of Busch Gardens in Tampa had to move the animals into more secure surroundings because their display enclosures wouldn't have provided any security whatsoever. This led to these amazing scenes where a flamboyance of flamingos follow a staff member who led them from their outdoor enclosure to an indoor facility. The park was then closed for a few days to allow all of the other animals to be relocated and kept in the warm away from the storm as the 135-mile-per-hour winds passed over. Number 4. Thorn, the baby squirrel. Visitors travel to the Kruger National Park in South Africa to see a wide variety of animals that aren't seen anywhere else on Earth. But it was an all-too-common creature that became the focus of attention for one group of tourists. They were near the Timbavati picnic site and thought they had heard an unusual call of a bird. They looked around to see where it was coming from, but instead of seeing a feathery friend up in a tree, they saw a baby squirrel hanging off of it, stuck on a thorn. The sight of the baby squirrel was horrifying and it was crying out. The tourists didn't know what to do. Luckily though, one of them climbed on top of his car and was able to release it into a blanket. Now safely down on the ground, the baby squirrel snuggled into the warmth and could eventually go on to start foraging for food. Tragedy avoided. Number 3. Trapped horse. Floodwaters following Hurricane Harvey in Texas in 2017 caused a lot of difficulties for people and animals alike. The waters came in so fast that it caught people off guard, and farm animals were still in their pens. This meant that the farmers had to wade through the waters to help rescue them, or in the case of Chance and Rowdy Ward, ride through the water. They spent the entire day going from enclosure to enclosure to rescue all of their animals. There is a video on the news where you can see the dangerous situation this horse had found himself in. It was lucky Rowdy got there when he did, because the rate at which the water was rising would surely have meant this horse would have been in severe difficulties, potentially even drowning. Number 2. Alaska the polar bear. Polar bears are some of the largest and most powerful creatures on Earth, but when they are trapped and mistreated by people, they need as much help as they can get. This is what happened to Alaska, a polar bear who was one of 7 that were forced to perform for the Suarez Brothers Circus. The bears were kept in outdoor cages in 113-degree temperatures, which is much higher than their natural environment, as you already know. The cages were rarely cleaned and were covered in feces. Luckily for Alaska, PETA found out about these awful conditions and petitioned the authorities. Polar bears should be large creatures with bundles of energy and fluffy coats, but these ones were skinny, lethargic, and missing clumps of hair. As a result of the petition, the bears were all confiscated from the circus and relocated to zoos with more suitable climates. Unfortunately, one of the 7 died in transit. The others went on to live healthy and happier lives. Number 1. Duct Taped Dog. While most people are incredibly loving and caring towards their pets, there are some who are capable of unimaginable acts of cruelty. Texas plumber Carlos Carrillo was on his way to a job on a Friday in 2017 when he noticed a strange shape moving in a ditch off the side of the road. He and his coworkers stopped and went to investigate. What they found horrified both of them. It was a dog who had had his legs bound and his mouth duct taped shut, clearly left there to die. Whoever had done this to the poor dog didn't even want to give him the chance to fight for survival. They immediately cut the dog free and allowed it to stretch its legs and open its mouth. It straightaway showed love and affection to the men who rescued it and was clearly grateful for being rescued. The plumbers took it to the local pet rescue center where he was found to be in pretty good health, especially considering the way he had been treated. The whole thing was extremely strange and sad. The people who left them in the ditch, however, were never found. Let's just hope that they never are around animals again, because they clearly aren't capable of treating them with the respect and care that they deserve. This was just plain evil. Thanks for watching, and remember that acts of kindness don't go unnoticed. Remember to subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye!